Environment officials in Nigeria's biggest city have taken a bold step in tackling the challenge of plastic pollution. Last month, the Lagos state government announced an immediate ban on single-use plastics. The ban targets styrofoam products, which are popular with food vendors. It also includes single-use plastic bags, locally referred to as nylon bags. Now, the ban has been welcomed by environmental groups who say Africa is taking huge strides in the fight against plastic pollution. To date, 34 African countries have an existing ban or laws restricting the use of plastics. Now, we get our first report from Lagos, where our correspondent, Olisa Chukuma, shows us just how dire plastic pollution is in the city.
Gutters and drainage systems blocked by plastic waste. It's a common sight in Nigeria's largest city, Lagos. Authorities hope their new ban on single-use plastics will help clean up this long-standing problem.
I remember this canal as a kid growing up. Now, decades later, it's even worse. Most people agree that the problem needs fixing, but not everyone is happy with the ban.
Street food vendors say they've been hit hardest. They use styrofoam boxes as a cheap way to pack lunches, but it's non-biodegradable and, says the state, the biggest environmental menace. The vendors say they haven't been given enough time to find alternatives.
Now, I'm losing more customers. So I'm using nylon to buy food, which is not proper. Even the nylon itself is dangerous for the health. So tell me, they should provide an alternative for us to be selling our business.
Lagos produces tons of waste daily. Some of the trash is collected and recycled, but most of it is dumped, without a thought for the damage it does to the environment.
It is good as a council that's disposable. I mean that foaming pack, it is good.
Things that are causing erosion and flooding in this Lagos Island is basically about this pack. It blocks the gutters. And when people use, instead of them to dispose it, and maybe they don't dispose it, they just throw it everywhere they see.
Banning it to me is not necessary. Although it's really blocking the canal, we can see it as well, but it's not necessary. It cannot work to me.
Nigeria is a major importer of plastics, and many people rely on plastic waste for their livelihoods. Environmentalists say the ban is a first step to changing habits and attitudes.
Even in the process of banning styrofoams, the transition has to be just. But from our perspective, it has to be first mental, because as people change behavior, they will also change the way they connect with the use of plastic at different levels. The conversation around plastic and its effect must be demystified. People must see themselves in the conversation and own the conversation.
Lagos State says it will back up its ban with checks on producers and distributors, along with fines to help pay for the cost of cleaning up.
And for more on this, we have invited Hellen Dena from Greenpeace Africa. She is the project lead for the organization's Pan-African Plastics Project, which is aimed at reducing plastic pollution in the environment. Welcome to DW News Africa, Hellen. You've hailed the ban on single-use plastic in Lagos. Tell us about just how important a step it is.
So we congratulate Lagos government for banning plastics and the styrofoam. And this is important because plastic has been shown to have disproportionate impacts on marginalized communities. Most of these communities live in Africa. Plastics has also, led to environmental impacts such as, flooding, which now leads to a lot of health impacts when it comes to the population. So this is a step in the right direction in terms of not just health, but also environmental, justice.
And Hellen, as we heard in our report, people in Lagos were taken by surprise with the ban, especially the bit about it coming into immediate effect. What do you think it will take to make this ban achieve the results that the authorities are seeking in Lagos?
The authorities need to work with, different stakeholders, be it, industry, the people who produce the styrofoam, be it the consumers, because, when it comes to implementation, that is where, the rubber meets the road. So I think what they need to do is look at how do we then look at, for instance, subsidies. How do we subsidize the alternatives that are sustainable, not just looking at what the consumers will do, because at the end of the day, we need everyone to come on board for us to be able to have effective implementation. So let the politicians, let the government also work with stakeholders, people from the industry who have the money to, for instance, invest in sustainable alternatives. And for the consumers, the alternatives that are sustainable need to be subsidized.
Hellen, stand by, because I would like for us to have a look at an example from Kenya, which has had a head start in regulating plastic pollution, and then we'll pick up our conversation.
In Kenya, a total ban of single-use plastic so far only applies to national parks and nature reserves. But in 2017, Kenya introduced a nationwide ban on single-use plastic bags, a move that was lauded as groundbreaking at that time. But has it been successful?
I feel like it made the streets a little bit cleaner because you can't see traces of plastic everywhere.
Plastic can't rot. So I think the government, at least they tried. By banning plastic, it would really reduce the waste around.
For me, plastic, in whichever form you call it, there are alternatives to it.
80% of the public are complying with the ban. Kenyan authorities say a $25,000 fine and up to 4 years in prison have proved to be an effective deterrent. Environmental activists agree and say the plastic bag ban has made significant gains and helped reduce plastic pollution overall. So, a success? Not so fast. You can still find places like this here in Nairobi, or this, or even this, one of the largest landfills here in East Africa. Despite an overall positive response, the plastic bag ban has not been enough to eliminate Kenya's pollution problem because it does not include the many other forms of plastic like this bottle for water or soda, or these containers in which vegetables and takeaway food are sold. There are 4.5 million people living in Nairobi, and they generate more than 2,400 tons of waste every day, a fifth of which is plastic. After the ban took effect, many of these bags made out of polypropylene flooded the market. They're more durable than single-use plastic bags and easier to recycle. Nonetheless, polypropylene takes decades to decompose and eventually breaks down into microplastics, polluting groundwater and causing harm to humans and animals when ingested. These bags are supposed to be used repeatedly, but often end up being used only once, just like the previous single-use ones. Therefore, in a further move to ban environmentally harmful plastics, in 2019, the Kenyan government banned these two, rather unsuccessfully. So all in all, Kenya is one of the African countries moving in the right direction. But as Greenpeace Africa told us, the ultimate goal should be a complete ban of single-use plastics.
Hellen, just picking up with you over there, we see, as our reporter was saying, in the case of Kenya, that banning single-use plastic bags alone, while it was a step in the right direction, it's not been enough to tackle the pollution problem.
Absolutely, because you realize that there are other forms of single-use plastics, and the notorious one in this case is the plastic bottles. So for it to be successful, we need a complete ban of single-use plastics, all the single-use plastics, because if you go to Kenyan supermarkets right now, you still have, things like bread and other products being packed, using single-use plastics. So this, for us to be successful, well, I have to admit that there have been hits and misses when it comes to the single-use, ban that was instituted in 2017. But the government needs to go ahead and ban all other single-use plastics. But more than that, they also need to look at the alternatives. How do they make those alternatives affordable to the consumers, to the public? Because until that happens, then we'll still be struggling with issues to do with implementation.
Understood. And Hellen, where does recycling come into the conversation?
So recycling is not enough to solve, the plastic pollution crisis. The ultimate, solution to this crisis is a reduction at the point of production. If you look at recycling, research says only about 9% of plastics ever produced has been recycled globally. And even when you look at, wealthier nations, the numbers really don't get past 40, 50. So we are looking at a situation where until we are able to cap production, then we'll not be able to get out of this crisis anytime soon.
All right, that's Hellen Dena from Greenpeace Africa. Thank you for your insights.